Hi, we're Joe and Joe from Modern Gladiatorial Arts, and today I'd like to talk about the Longsword. This will be a brief review of our Module 1, Basic Attack and Basic Defense. Let's start with defense. We break it up into 4 major and 3 minor guards. The first major guard is our Plow. It is held at your back hip, strong guard, point towards your opponent. As you step forward or step back, you are switching the hip that your guard is held at. If we raise our hands up, we have our hanging guard. Again, stepping back and forward changes which side of your body the hilt is on, staying with the back hip. From this high position, we have the high guard. It can be holding a baseball bat, you can have it resting easy off the shoulder, you can have it over your head. Again, we are generally holding it at our back hip. The opposite of the high guard is the fool's guard. Point is down towards your body, warding off attacks towards your legs and lower attacks. I do say opposite. The fool's guard is pointed down, can deflect low things but does not come up too high. The high guard is point up, only comes down so low. On the other side of it, the Plow is opposite by the hanging guard. You can simply move your hands up. Your point still has a similar orientation. It's where your hilt is that determines what part of your body you're protecting. Those are the 4 major guards. We also have the 3 minor guards. The first one is our tail guard. It's at your back hip, point away from you. So as you're stepping on the other side of your body, it's moving to your other side. We then have long point. Your sword is extended out. The entire length of your sword is behind you. It doesn't matter which leg is forward, because your sword is extended in front of you. You're putting the maximum distance between your opponent and you as you can. The final of the minor guards is the back guard. It can be towards either shoulder, front foot, or back foot, or directly behind you. So those are your 4 major and your 3 minor guards. Moving on to the offense. I like to break it up and do what we call the 3 wounders. And the 3 wounders being the basic ways of hurting somebody with a longsword. The first wounder I'd like to talk about is cutting. Cutting is using a percussive action with the sharp edge of the sword. We do have 2 sharp edges on the sword, it's a double-edged sword, but cutting does have that percussive action to it. To practice our cuts, we have the 8 basic cuts. We'll start in a tail guard. We're then cutting through our opponent, then down his other side, making an X. Then making a reciprocal action of the cut, we're cutting back up and then back down the other side. Moving to our high guard, we're slicing through the ribs and using the back edge to slice through the ribs on the other side. Bringing our high guard overhead, we're cleaving our opponent from the skull to the groin, and then the groin to the skull. If you do it all together, you have a more flowing motion going through all 8 basic attacks. Those are the 8 basic cuts. Our second wounder is thrusting. The point of a thrust is to put all your force through your sword and into your opponent. It looks basically like this. There's a lot of things going on here. The first thing to be mindful of is the order of motion. If I want all my force to be behind the point has to start moving first, and my body has to be behind it. If you want to imagine an invisible hand grabbing the point of your sword, pulling it, and everything you have is following behind this. This is how you focus. You also want to control your breathing and your timing of the thrust in your step. So your point goes through your opponent when your foot hits the ground and when your breath leaves your body. This is how you focus power from the ground, through your leg, through your core, your shoulders, out through your sword point. The third wounder I'd like to talk about is slicing. Whereas cutting relies on a percussive action of your sword behind the sharp edge, slicing has no percussive action. It is the act of your sword being sharp going through a softer target. If you think about a steak with a cleaver, that's your cut. Your sharp steak knife sliding through the meat is how the mechanics of a slice work. Using a slice will oftentimes happen because you try to do something else and your opponent foiled it. He is blocked by thrust. I put my edge on him and drawn back through the target. Another example of the same thing is he's blocked by thrust. I have changed the angle and pushed my edge through him. Those are the three wounders: cutting, thrusting, and slicing. I'd like to talk about homework now, some things you can work on at home. The first one is the 1,000 cut challenge. Basically, you're going to do the 8 cuts 1,000 times. So 12 repetitions of your 8 cuts gives you about 100. 10 sets of that gives you 1,000. It's important that when you're doing this, you're not acting in a jerky manner. You're moving fluidly. You can go as fast or as slow as you like. You may step in and out of it if you would like. You don't need to stay static. It is important to keep moving. It's important to maintain that spacing between your hands so that you're not training yourself to hide behind your hands. If you wish to increase the difficulty, decrease the speed. If you can do it slowly, it tends to be a little harder and a better exercise than doing it quickly. The last exercise I'd like to talk about is practicing every cut from every guard. When we did the 8 cuts before, I started the tail guard, moved to a high guard, moved to an overhead position of the high guard. What I'd like you to try is pick one guard. We'll start with the plow. From the plow, I'm going to launch all 8 of my cuts. Instead of transitioning into my next, I return to the plow. As you can see from the contourations of my body, some of these are more natural than others. You wouldn't always launch one of these attacks from the plow. From the hanging, I have the same thing. In addition to doing these cuts, you also need to practice them from a stationary position and from a moving position. Very few fights have you fixed in place, so it's good to practice while you're moving. That's Module 1, Basic Attack and Basic Defense. We're Joe and Joe from Modern Gladiatorial Arts. Thank you.